I said it, you said it, just about everybody said it. I don't know who did not agree that this would be the best game of the week. Would it be the most exciting, the most crazy, the most wild? Well, it could be, but we saw that on Friday night with Stanford and Colorado. No, when it came to quality football, but also exciting, entertaining football, the two best offenses on the same field on Saturday and maybe the entire season in Seattle, and a undefeated top 10 matchup. So when you add up the entertainment, the quality of play, the offense, the quarterback play, and the importance of the game, Washington, Oregon delivered. Oh my goodness, for the first time ever, two undefeated top 10 teams from these two programs. And remember, this is a rivalry. It's not known across the country, not talked about across the country, but a rivalry. And so these two teams and these two fan bases do not like each other. Washington came out and really exploded after the first drive stop. Dylan Johnson, underplayed, not talked about necessarily. And when I say underplayed, I mean from a social media standpoint and from a fan standpoint of talking about really good players. Came in from Mississippi State, where he thrived in the Mike Leach offense, and he had himself a day. And he was the guy that really was the tremendous compliment to Michael Penix on offense for Washington. 20 carries for 100 yards and some big runs in the first few drives of the game when Washington took off with a couple touchdowns to lead it 14-8. They really won the field position battle, and that you would not connect with this game. You would connect that with Iowa, Wisconsin. But there was a field position battle early in the game in the first quarter that really kept the Ducks down the first 3 to 4 drives of this ball game as Washington controlled field position. Did you see the hit from Michelle Powell on Jordan James? Just this, I don't want to say it set the tone, because the tone was set by the two teams working their tails off all week preparing for this game, and the way they prepare and their goals on this season. So they were laser focused and hyper ready and focused and at a fever pitch in terms of the adrenaline before that. But it was just kind of indicative of where this game was going to go when Powell laid the hit on Jordan James. It was a massive shot. It's fun to watch big hits in college football, but we don't like the possibilities of the injury, obviously, in James. It was great to see him come back. And you talk about a guy that runs hard. Jordan James and Bucky Irving, both of the backs for Oregon. Wow. But James in particular in this game, to be hit like that and come back. And talk about a guy that's used to being hit over and over and over. He's played a long college football career, and that, of course, is Bo Nix. And he made some runs in the first quarter that kept Oregon in the game, that extended drives. He had one in particular where he had the consciousness to extend the football. The play was reviewed. He gets the first down, keeps the drive alive, and it turns out to be an important measurement, because Patrick Herbert made a heck of a catch for his first touchdown catch of the season. The tight end followed Bo as Bo left the pocket, scrambled. Herbert broke off the route, redirected himself, made himself a viable target, and made a tremendous catch for a big dude to leap that high in the air and catch the ball off the fingertips. And Oregon led it 15-14 at that point. Washington practiced a certain wide receiver pass that was a bit unconventional throughout the week. They had some injuries that led to Jeremy Bernard saying, hey, I can throw that pass. And heck yes, he did. He threw a tremendous ball on the dead run and kept that Huskies drive alive with about a 20-yard play downfield. And then Michael Penix, of course, we have yet to talk about him. And Michael Penix, our apologies to you, Mr. Penix, for not mentioning you for the first 2 or 3 minutes of this video, because you were outstanding on this day, as you have been all season. And all season for 2 seasons, 31 touchdowns, over 4,600 yards last year, and you are topping that performance. And when all is said and done, might be hosting a rather significant trophy in New York City. All right. We also had plays made by Edufan Ulofoshio, the Oregon leader on defense, as was talked about with Dan Lanning this week in regards to the the Kirk Herbstreit commentary in the game, and in his review of the team, going to the practices and so forth, he pointed him out in particular. He had a big sack that stopped one of the drives, at least scoring a touchdown, led to a field goal, stopped the Ducks there. It was a 22-18 ball game at that point. You also had the Oregon front seven doing everything they possibly could, of course, to distract Michael Penix when they couldn't get there. Well, you know, you had Mateo Uiagalelei with a batted ball that stopped a drive. And you also had some other batted passes, 3 in the first half, that served the Ducks well in doing anything they could. Again, when you're facing this Huskies offense and you've got what was described today on the broadcast as the best offense in the country, at least the best passing game in the country, because of the quarterback, the wide receivers, but also the approach, the scheme, and the coaching, both from a scheme standpoint and a development standpoint, the Huskies are just, man, they would be a tough out in a college football playoff, and I don't know who wants to play them necessarily in that situation. Rome Odunze, we know that we're going to get to him as well, but on this particular play that was kind of key, Washington driving for another score. They had passed midfield, and there was a miscommunication. He also fell down, but still the Michael Penix pass appeared to be thrown way far to the outside where Odunze was setting up inside on the left sideline, and that was thrown behind and picked off, and that was at the 50-yard line, and there was only about 55 seconds left in the first half at that point. All right, that led to an Oregon opportunity. So Washington could have gone up by 2 scores. Ducks get the interception, and they start marching down the field, which led to Dan Lanning's decision at the end of the first half. Ducks inside the 5-yard line. Only 6 seconds left. They get it down to 4th and goal. They're at like the 4-yard line. Too far to try to run. They did what I typically like in that situation, except I didn't like the down and distance because I just say you kick the field goal. You're down by 4, and I understand field goals don't win these games. But you know what? That's a cliche. Field goals can win these games, and we saw that at the end of the game, and we saw that at the end of the first half, where if Oregon would have kicked a field goal, they might have won the football game in the end. You don't know how the scoring would have transpired after that, but you get the deal. You've got to measure as a head coach risk reward. And the likelihood of completing that play for a touchdown is, I don't know, it's less than 50%. And they went for it. They didn't get it. They could have kicked and went to the locker room at 22-21, but they instead were down by 4. Washington comes right back out, marches down the field for the touchdown. Michael Penix just doing work on the 2 new Oregon cornerbacks. So when you play the Huskies, when you play the Ducks, when you play this style of football, of course, you need about 4 cornerbacks. Nickelbacks, you need different matchups in terms of the tight ends and so forth. You need a lot of secondary quality and depth to deal with it. And cornerbacks were at a premium for Oregon as they lose Kyrie Jackson and they lose Khalil Florence, their top 2 cornerbacks. So when we make the assessment and evaluation of this game, there's a few things we need to take into consideration. Oregon lost the 2 cornerbacks. Now, in terms of excusing losses or anything like that, that has no place in football. You play with who you have, and you take the W or the L. However, in evaluating the teams, this ball game was played in Husky Stadium, was played on the road. It also was a situation, again, in which Oregon lost its 2 top cornerbacks. Oregon gets the ball back, and guess what? They drive all the way back down the field. I have not checked the total yardage numbers. There's probably not a great discrepancy, but there were more Oregon opportunities that they left on the field than Washington. Washington cashed in. Oregon did not. Oregon goes for the 4th and 3. They're at the Washington 9, and Troy Franklin could have come up with a catch. It was a great angle laid out there by the cornerback. He made it a difficult throw for Bo Nix, but Bo Nix delivered the throw exactly where it needed to be placed on the out to the sideline. Franklin slid. the defensive back attempted to knock it loose and get in the way of the ball traveling to the breadbasket, but he didn't do it. And Franklin dropped the ball. And it was a tough catch again. But Oregon, another missed opportunity. Should they have kicked a field goal? I don't know. But these add up. Field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal. We're talking about 3 of them at this point. Okay. Oregon stops him on defense once again. So the Ducks played some pretty good defense when it was all said and done in this game. They start at the 49, and then Troy Franklin gets loose down the sideline for the 30-yard touchdown on the streak play. He got the free release off the line. They didn't get the chuck on him. The cornerback whiffed on the jam. The cornerback or the safety could not get over, didn't get there in time, and that looked like it could be the game-winning touchdown play as Bo Nix placed it in there, and it was 33-29 Ducks. Washington gets the ball back. What does Oregon do? They stand up at the goal line and deny the Huskies to turn the ball back over, and so Oregon keeps making drives down the field. They finally convert on that one after 2 decisions to not go for field goals. They cash in to go up by 4. They get the goal line stop. They take over the ball. We saw Alabama do this earlier in the day. 5.5 minutes left. They lean on the offensive line. They only have to make a couple throws. This is a different type of game, sure. But Oregon could not quite get the job done. They did get some key first downs, some conversions, specifically on a 3rd and 5, an impressive play from Nix to the receiver to convert there. But they, after going 3 more plays, were faced with another situation at midfield. They're at the Huskies 47. It's 4th and 3. Here we go. Another 4th and 3. There's 2:16 on the clock. What do? If you punt, if you have faith in the punter, I've not looked over his numbers and so forth to see how proficient he has been at downing the ball inside the, let's say, the 5 to 10 yard line. But if you can do that, then you look at 2 minutes left, and you're defending with a 4-point lead. You are defending 90 yards. The worst that's probably going to happen is you kick the ball in the end zone, but from the 47-yard line, you probably don't. If your punter's any good, you probably get the Huskies inside the 10, and maybe you really drop them back there at the 2 or 3. But inside the 10-yard line, 2 minutes left. That's probably the way I'm going to go. I understand the Dan Lanning play. I'm not going to criticize it because it's 4th and 3. If you get that conversion, you're just right on the doorstep of victory. You haven't quite clinched it. I think the Huskies still have a timeout left, but you're right there. You are right there, even to the point where Oregon didn't get the first down, turn it over on downs. The Huskies score in 2 plays, and Oregon still gets it back to put themselves in position to maybe win the game, but definitely had that field goal miss. So a lot of back and forth. You know, I'm watching this game at the same time I'm watching Wisconsin and Iowa, and I don't even know how to describe it. It's like I'm watching football from the 1970s and football from, on a video game from 2023 at the same time. So they don't get it. And then, bam, you turn it over to arguably the best quarterback in the country. If he keeps playing like this and Caleb Williams stumbles here and there like he did in the first quarter against Notre Dame and did at times against Arizona, maybe we've got an argument for best quarterback in the game. But Penix goes to Jalen Polk on the huge play for 35 yards to put them in position. And then, bam, back shoulder to Rome Odunze, just one of the great receivers in college football. And there we go, 36-33. But there's a $1:38 on the clock. 36-33. Bo Nix brings the Ducks back down the field and didn't quite have enough time. Managed the time well. Got out of bounds when they needed to. They did have the throw down the middle when the tight end posted up against the soft zone, Terrence Ferguson, and he made the catch in the soft zone to get the Ducks down to the 25 with about 17 seconds left in the game. They didn't necessarily take shots to the end zone. They wanted to get closer for the field goal. I get that. It's kind of strange that Dan Lanning would be that aggressive the entire game and then on this final drive say, you know what, we're going to play conservative to kick a field goal to go to overtime on the road. I'm not saying that was the wrong call necessarily because it's a close call to make. There's not a decisive, you can go either way on this, but this is clearly the better risk reward situation. No, this is pretty much split down the middle in my estimation as Oregon went 10 plays 50 yards from its own 32 with a $113 left. But again, to play it that aggressive the entire game, to make the type of decisions that Lanning made on the road, and then to settle for the field goal, well, that's what they did. And they get the field goal miss. Camden Lewis misses. Oregon, Washington, we'll see you next time in the Big Ten. The series moves to the Big Ten next. Isn't that strange to think about? Or in the Pac-12 championship game. The Pac-12, to its credit, has more big games upcoming than any conference in college football. The rest of the conferences, you can point to a game here, there, and say, oh, we got to watch that game, and that game. In the Pac-12, it's about 3 every week because we still have Utah in play, USC in play, these two teams in play. UCLA's in play. Washington State's in play. Oregon State's in play. So for the Ducks, they fall to 2-1, so they can't lose again. They've got Washington State. They've got to get off the deck and face a tough Cougars team next week. Then they go to Utah. Wow. Washington 3-0. Couple layups the next couple weeks. You would think with Arizona State and miracle worker Stanford coming up. But they should arrive at USC in a few weeks at 5-0 in the conference. Huskies, Ducks. Yes, it was fun. Leave your comments down below. Wherever you want to take this one. Who's better, Washington, Oregon? Seems like a ridiculous question, but we approach that one all the time. Just because Washington won the game doesn't mean that they're better. You can talk about Heisman. You can talk about Pac-12 race, college football playoff aspirations for both of these teams down in the comment section below, because that's what we do here at the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. We will see you next time.